In this video I'm going to be detailing this brand new Mazda 2 using the help of some products that have been sent to review, some I've purchased myself, and all of which I'll be giving you my honest thoughts on throughout the video. I kick things off on the wheels by using high definition details Grime Zero at a 1:20 ratio in the IK sprayer to pre-wash the wheels, and I use this chemical to contact wash them as well. This is a really versatile product that has great cleaning power but also is very well lubricated, so nice and safe for contact cleaning, and it helped me just make the process a little bit more efficient as I wasn't mixing up new chemicals and having to switch between them throughout the process. This vehicle only had 47 miles on the clock at the time of doing this detail, so there really wasn't that much traffic film to deal with in the pre-wash stage, just a little bit of mud kicked up that I sprayed that 1:20 mix of Grime Zero on, and then followed up by snow foam in the rest of the vehicle. Here I'm using Carbon Collective Ultimus Plus, which is their alkaline snow foam, and they do have a standard Ultimus version which is pH neutral as well. This version has a bit more bite to it, and I've tested it on a few cars now which have been moderately dirty after a few weeks of driving, and it's had no trouble whatsoever. I haven't had the opportunity to test it on something seriously dirty yet though, so that's the plan once I next get the chance. To contact wash the car, I again went in with Grime Zero by High Definition Detail, and I put 50ml of this in my 20 litre bucket. As I said previously, this shampoo is very well lubricated and feels ultra slick, which is the main thing that I'm looking for here, but it also, being alkaline, does have the ability to really deep clean the paintwork, so it's a good option when preparing the car for subsequent decontamination steps. The first step of the process here was to use Carbon Collective's React Iron Fallout Remover to deal with any embedded contamination. Although this is a brand new vehicle, it has picked up contamination on a 3-month journey from the factory to the dealership. The colour on this car really isn't ideal to show you the reaction happening, so I couldn't really pick it up on camera, but in person I could definitely see that reaction lighting up. There weren't any tar spots on this car, so I could zip straight ahead to the claying process. And here I'm using the Carbon Collective clay block, which comes with 2 interchangeable pads, one for medium contamination and one for heavy, so here I went for the less aggressive option. The main advantage of using this kind of clay block over traditional clay bar is that you can reuse this and just keep rinsing it out in between panels to keep it contaminant free. This usually comes at the expense of it being harder to manipulate around tight areas. However, with this clay block having those interchangeable pads, you can just peel them off the holder and manipulate the pads so I could easily reach those tighter areas. As with any claying process, it's very likely that you're going to get some level of marring on the paintwork, and particularly with this Mazda having super soft paint, it did leave some light marring behind, but nothing that couldn't be easily taken care of with a finishing polish. In order to further decontaminate glass and remove stains that would otherwise prevent the protection from bonding later in the process, I went in with Tack Systems glass polish and then followed up with a damp microfiber cloth to remove the residue. I then gave the car a final rinse down and dried it off. I find that my car dryer is really useful here as it blows all the water out of those areas that are likely to trap it and cause strips when I'm machine polishing. So once I dried off the vehicle, I got the paint depth gauge out just to check there wasn't anything weird going on, and I was actually very shocked at just how little clear coat this car has on. Now Mazdas, particularly in this colour, are well known for having very thin paint, but to be getting readings of 55 microns in some areas and averaging in the low 60s, I think is absolutely shocking really for a brand new car. This car wasn't even washed at the dealership and hasn't had any paint corrections since leaving the factory, so these readings are incredibly low. My advice to anyone purchasing a new Mazda would be to strongly consider getting it ceramic coated to preserve what little clear coat there is as best as possible. You could also consider going down the PPF route, but considering these aren't very high value vehicles, it's probably not really worth it. Fortunately, as this car hadn't been washed at the dealership, I was only really removing very light defects here, which were present from the factory, and a little bit of clay marring, so I could go in with a really light machine polish to only remove about a micron or less of paint. Here I'm using my new Into Detailing DA15 machine polisher with a white chemical guise pad and the last detail finishing polish. I will be doing a separate review on this machine polisher, so that will be out hopefully in the next month or so. But my initial thoughts are that I do think it's a really good machine, particularly when you factor in the price. It felt nice and smooth and the vibration really wasn't as much as I was expecting for an affordable polisher, but as I said, I will be doing a proper in-depth look at this in a later video. In order to remove any polishing oils and really prepare the surface and get it as clean as possible for the coating stage, I went in with the Performance People Lack of Sin panel wipe spray. This is an essential step before applying a coating, as otherwise it might not be able to bond properly to the surface and ultimately lead to disappointing results. To protect the exterior surfaces on this car, I went in with Performance People Rain, which is a 7-year ceramic coating. This can be used on most surfaces to eliminate the need to apply several different coatings. So I used it on the paint, plastics, alloy faces, glass and the exhaust tip. The application process of this really couldn't have been any easier. I just applied it to a small section using a crosshatch pattern, waited for around 10 seconds and then buffed the residue with a microfiber towel. I also followed up with a second towel just to make sure that I'd fully removed the residue. The water repellency and slickness of this coating is pretty ridiculous, to be honest, and I've been really impressed with it so far, and I'm really excited to monitor this and provide some updates, primarily through my Instagram page. To dress the tyres on this car, I went for Carbon Collective Sateen Rubber and Tyre Protectant. I applied it using a foam applicator quite liberally and then went back about 5 minutes later to remove the excess using a microfiber towel, and I thought it left an absolutely perfect finish on these tyres. It just looked fresh and new and not greasy and artificial, and was an ideal product to finish off this new car protection detail.